everyone. This is the second in the series of a word that changes worlds. And what do we say when we get to that passage of V'yanuchu? Shiurei Knesset Hagadola, Rabbi Ben Bishti, that we already quoted. Min hagenu arvis v'yanuchu va, v'shachris v'yanuchu va, v'mincha v'yanuchu bam. The Chida Asfaradi, just like the Shiurei Knesset Hagadola says, Nimtza b'hagaot haremez, Rashi Tevot, the Sefer HaKavanot, that you do exactly like the Shiurei Knesset Hagdola. The Magen Avraham, the Ashkenazi, says, look in the Shiurei Knesset Hagdola, and that's our minhag. Ba, Friday night, bo, Shabbos, morning, Shachris Musaf, bum, at Mincha. That's the position of the Ben Ish Chai, the Sfaradi, minhagenu lobar me mincha bum. And that's the position of the Shulchan Aruch Harav of Shnir Zaman Miladi. Yesh nohagim itam hayadua lahem lomar ba'arvis v'yanuchu vo v'shachris b'musaf v'yanuchu vo v'mincha v'yanuchu bum. Well, not everyone agrees with this. Rav Yaakov Emden says that he didn't find it in the Kitvei Ha'ari, and therefore throughout the day of Shabbos, you stay with v'yanuchu vo in the masculine. That's what the Ben Ish Chai says as well. Shamati de minhag hasidim be'ira kodesh tibaneh v'tikonen lomar bemincha bo. And I know many Sfardim that have that minhag. A third minhag is to leave it in the feminine throughout Shabbos. In a book authored by Rabbi Aharon E. Marcus, one of the heads of the Reshit Yeshiva in Beit Shemesh, the name of the book, wonderful book called Halacha 24:7-12. He writes that Rav Shlomo Fisher's minhag was that because it changes from masculine to feminine, and therefore you maybe have to change the words, because of that, he would say it only in the feminine, namely Friday night, Shabbos, and also at Mincha, he would always say ba in the feminine. But as we saw, the majority of poskim seem to say, and this is the general Ashkenazic minhag in most Sidurim that I looked into, Friday night in the feminine ba, Shabbos morning in the masculine bo, and at Mincha in the plural bum. And the question is, why? The Shiurei Knesset Hagdola, Rabbi Ben Bishti, said, as we quoted last time, Friday night, it's like someone dating, but she's still in her father's home. She's still her own person, feminine. Shabbos morning, she's already into Shabbos much more, and therefore she's already married, living in the chassan's house. So therefore, in the masculine, she changed her name to the surname of her husband. By Mincha, and I quote, V'yanuchu bam, shelachar mikan shnei mikar. By Mincha, they're not just freshly married, but rather they are one, as a couple should become one. Yes, they can have disarguments, and they should. If they don't, they probably don't talk to each other. They have arguments how to raise their children, and then they come before their children as one unified front, and therefore it's bum, it's unified. So ultimately, our relationship with Shabbos is no different. Friday night, we're just getting into it. You're still your own person. Shabbos morning, it's like you just got married, but by Mincha, you're totally one with Shabbos. You rested, you eat, you ate, you're one with Shabbos. And that's what the Aruch HaShulchan says in one little sentence, U'bemincha shehu samuch la'erev kalul mishneihem omrim bam. By Mincha, it's both Chassan and Kala together, and therefore you say bam. The Torah Tamima, on the other hand, this is Rabbi Epstein, but not the author of the Aruch HaShulchan, namely not Rav Yechiel Michael Epstein, but a different Rabbi Epstein who wrote the Torah Tamima. And in the Torah Tamima, you have Midrashei Chazal, but on the bottom you have footnotes. And in a footnote, he writes that one leads to the other. Since by Mincha, he says, you change the words to plural, you don't say Shabbat Kochecha, but rather Shabbatot Kochecha Belashon Rabim, therefore you have no choice but to change the words to bum. Namely, since the Sidurim has changed the word Shabbos to Shabbatot, we're now not just davening for this Shabbos, but rather davening for many Shabboses that are coming, because Shabbos is almost over. In his words, Yanki la'et tfilat mincha kfar pana yom Shabbat zeh velo shayach lihitpalel ala menucha bo umitpalelim ala Shabbatot harabot habaot. since we're davening for the future Shabbases, so we change the plural and we say, we're going to rest on them. Boom. He doesn't explain why Shabbos morning, however, it's in the masculine. Comes along Rav Hershel Schachter and gives a different explanation than which he heard from the Rav. He says that this is not just language and linguistics. The Ramah paskins in Shulchan Aruch, Simon Reish Ayin Dalet Seif Aleph, that Friday night when you take the two challahs, you should make the bracha on the two challahs, holding one over the other, and cut the bottom one. Shabbos morning, you should hold one over the other and cut the top one. Why? He says, because of something in Kabbalah, and that is the Leil Shabbat ubchinat Sfirat Malchut, Asher Atachtona Mizayin Sfirot. In Kabbalah, there's 7 Sfirot. The bottom one is Malchut, namely kingship. It's the bottom one, therefore we cut the bottom one because Friday night is Malchus. Yom Shabbat Baboker hu b'bchinat Yesod, Asher Yasfira Shishit Lemala Mimena. Shabbos morning is called Yesod. Yesod is on top, namely 6 out of 7, and therefore you cut the top one. And therefore he says that's the reason that the Magen Avraham brought this minhag from the Shiurei Knesset Hagdola, shebelel Shabbat omrim v'yanu chuva in the feminine, uv'yom Shabbat v'yanu chuva in the masculine. Why? Shelel Shabbat hu b'bchinat malchut, u'malchut u'lashon nekeva. The word malchut in Hebrew, if you put it into the plural, it becomes malchuyot, which is feminine. Therefore, Friday night, you use the feminine because Friday night is malchut. Al ken shayach b'lashon nekeva v'yanu chuva. Yom Shabbat baboker hu b'bchinat yesod v'hu lashon zachar. Al ken omrim b'lashon zachar v'yanu chuvo. Yesod is from the masculine, at least I guess, in biblical Hebrew. Therefore, we use the masculine. So, from this perspective, we have 2 explanations as to why Shabbos morning changes from feminine, from Friday night ba, to masculine on Shabbos morning. According to the Shiurei Knesset Hagdola, it's because we're now more into Shabbos. It's like a bride that already moved into the groom's home, took his surname, and thus she basically is living now in his home, taking on his name. According to Rav Schachter, based on the Rav, it's based on the Yi Sfirot. Since the Sfira Friday night is in the feminine and Shabbos morning it's in the masculine, it expresses itself not just in the davening, but in the way we cut the challah. Namely, Friday night we cut the bottom challah, Shabbos morning we cut the top challah. And this is based on the fact that Friday night is the feminine, Shabbos morning is the masculine.
It's I know, it's I know, it's I know, b'michos ayini. Shiny be a soy, b'mitzvah seichu, b'seichel tiny vi, b'soidu seichu, sabayni me yidvos, miti veichu, b'samach nafshayni.